Dear viewers, you are following this week's edition of Cryptoverse News. From now on, we will be here every week to bring you the latest news from the world of crypto and blockchain. By all accounts, the last quarter of the year could be explosive. And today, among other things, we bring you Bitcoin at $65,000, about 10% from its price record. Global monetary easing brought much-needed liquidity to the system. BTC spot ETFs record 6 consecutive days of inflows. The peak of the cycle in October of next year, with Bitcoin above $100,000 by the end of this year. All leading alts in the plus. Kamala Harris broke her silence about crypto. We will open the report with the king of cryptocurrencies, who is having a really great week. Bitcoin thus jumped over the psychologically important $65,000 mark for the first time since the end of July. BTC is currently only 10% away from its record high of roughly $73,700. And then follows the so-called price discovery phase, a phase in which there are no resistance levels from a technical point of view. Will Bitcoin hit a new all-time high as soon as next month is a question that is being asked more and more loudly in the crypto space. And the answer is quite easily possible. Because when you look at historical data, if the price stays at these levels, the leading cryptocurrency will have its best September in history. Traditionally, being mostly in the red, September is the month with the worst average returns throughout previous years. However, BTC will end it with as much as 11% in the plus. And then comes October, which is traditionally positive, which is why it is usually called Uptober. Thus, with this decisive breakthrough, Bitcoin most likely came out of the painful 6-month consolidation phase, and the most significant catalysts were the monetary ones, namely the lowering of reference interest rates, first in the USA after 4 years, and then in China, which made its central bank inject $140 billion into the economy. In both cases, the reduction amounted to 50 basis points, or 0.5%. Some of the liquidity that has been freed up in China appears to be going into digital assets, despite the mainland's complete ban on crypto. American monetary relaxation, on the other hand, shifted the focus from traditional investment products such as bonds to riskier assets, which crypto certainly is, but also facilitated access to capital. It is important to note that analysts expect additional rate cuts by the Federal Reserve by 75 basis points by the end of the year. So it is obvious that the markets are being driven by the newfound liquidity, which is driving the appreciation of asset prices in all segments. Whether it's gold or the S&P 500, which hit their new highs this week, or Bitcoin itself, liquidity remains a key driver of asset performance in today's economy. As long as central banks continue to provide support, financial markets can continue to grow. And the stimulus to the price growth was given to a good extent by the US spot Bitcoin ETFs, which recorded 6 consecutive days of inflows. On Thursday alone, ETFs were up a whopping $365.7 million. How big this amount is perhaps is the simplest to convey in this manner. That amount means that ETFs bought, therefore removed from the market, more than 5,500 Bitcoins in one single day. As a reminder, only 450 new pieces of BTC are mined per day after the halving. In this context, it should also be said that in the past 30 days, about 100,000 BTCs have been withdrawn from various crypto exchanges. And probably everyone knows what such a disproportion between supply and demand leads to. And although certain corrections are always possible, the trend is positive in any case. The bull market is back and heading towards its most explosive growth. Accordingly, the positivity and sentiment among investors are growing, as can be seen from the crypto index of fear and greed. Only last month, this indicator was deep in the fear zone with a score of 30. Today, it is at twice higher levels. What a difference just a few weeks makes. So, we could indeed have a great fourth quarter ahead of us. Of course, this is crypto, and tomorrow there may be some black swan event which will cause the market drops by 20 or 30%, but the dice are stacked in a positive direction. A perfect storm seems to be in the making, and historical patterns suggest that it is time for a breakthrough towards the last parabolic phase of the cycle. Thus, according to the data presented by the analytical company K33 Research, it should last a while, bringing a long and exciting crypto journey. Namely, as they say in K33, the past 2 cycles of the bull market, from the lowest to the highest value, lasted plus 1,050 days, with the biggest gains recorded in the last 365 days. We are currently on day 675 of this cycle, which means that we still have more than a year ahead of us, and which brings us to the period that is often speculated as the peak of this bull, which is expected in September or October of 2025. Of course, we should not forget that this time the new highest value of Bitcoin was reached already in March, before the halving, driven by the approval of BTC spot ETFs, which very likely resulted in such a long consolidation, and it is possible that it will result in a completely different cycle. However, if cycle matching is to be believed, it would also mean that new Bitcoin records are only a matter of days away. Namely, as well-known pseudonymous crypto trader and analyst Rekt Capital wrote on Monday, BTC would historically break out of its reaccumulation range 154 days to 161 days after the halving. Now, 157 days have passed. History suggests that breakout time is here, and BTC should now enter its parabolic growth phase. Rekt also notes that previous cycles show that this current one is only 44.8% of the way through the current bull market. And this bull run could be, as we said, different, much stronger, and maybe even longer than the previous ones, because Bitcoin has now definitely entered the mainstream. If someone had said in the last cycle that the top managers of the largest TradFi companies would talk about BTC in chosen words, that the financial giants would accumulate the leading cryptocurrency on their balance sheets, they would probably have been laughed at. But today, some other winds are blowing. So Robert Mitchnick, head of digital assets at BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, which holds tens of trillions of assets, told Bloomberg that they view Bitcoin as an emerging global monetary alternative that offers features such as scarcity and decentralization. So, how much could BTC really reach by the end of the year? Popular crypto analyst Ali Martinez highlights the performance of Bitcoin during the previous halving years of 2016 and 2020. During the fourth quarter of 2016, the price of BTC increased by 61%, and during the fourth quarter of 2020 by more than 171%. If Bitcoin were to replicate such a performance, it could rise roughly to between $105,000 and $180,000 by the end of this year. This sounds truly unreal. And as it always happens, along with Bitcoin, alts are also gaining strength. Thus, most of the leading cryptocurrencies closed the working week in the green, with meme coins Floki, Shiba Inu, Pepe, and Bonk leading the daily gains. So, is it time for a mini alt season? It is possible, but only if Bitcoin decides to take a break. That is, if its dominance, which is still above 50%, falls. As for the biggest alts, Ether is above $2,650, and it seems that its ETFs could finally turn the trend to the positive, as inflows are becoming more frequent. But unlike Bitcoin, whose ETFs have been eagerly accepted by investors because they perceive BTC as digital gold, thus as a kind of protection against inflation, Ethereum struggles with its narrative. Because how to explain to less technologically savvy investors what the leading blockchain of smart contracts actually is? In particular, Ethereum's blockchain world computer narrative doesn't come across as easily to traditional financial investors as Bitcoin's digital gold narrative. BNB is also in a slight plus, above $600, and some analysts predict the return of bullish sentiment around Binance's coin due to the release from prison of the former CEO and co-founder of the world's largest stock exchange, Changpeng Zhao, or CZ for short, and the hype surrounding that which could appear. In the meantime, Solana's SOL is up 2% on the day, trading at $156 at the time of the recording of this video, with community enthusiasm additionally fueled by a report released this week by financial giant VanEck, predicting that SOL could climb to $330, potentially capturing 50% of Ether's market capitalization. A strong jump of 8% is also recorded by Doge, maybe because of the plans to run a virtual machine on Dogecoin's blockchain, but more likely because Elon Musk was mentioning his favorite crypto again. Because when Musk tweets or talks about Doge, a jump is usually inevitable. Let's mention Cardano as well, whose A-Day again jumped over Tron's TRX and reached 40 cents, with a weekly growth of 12%. And finally, politics, to which not even crypto is immune. Indeed, the US presidential election is seen as one of the more significant growth catalysts, especially if Donald Trump takes the White House again. But now, Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris has finally broken her silence on digital assets, promising to boost investment in the AI and digital asset industries. Harris also said she plans to ensure the U.S. remains dominant in emerging technologies such as blockchain, AI, and quantum computing, noting that these sectors will define the next century. Her comments stand in contrast to the crypto industry's perceived hostility of Joe Biden's administration toward the digital asset ecosystem, an administration she is admittedly a member of. But despite Harris's rather restrained efforts to win over crypto voters, Trump is still considered the de facto pro-crypto candidate, because Trump is much more direct and claims he wants to make the U.S. the crypto and Bitcoin capital of the world. In July, he gave a keynote speech at a blockchain conference in Nashville, pitching the idea of creating a national Bitcoin reserve, saying along the way that he would fire Gary Gensler as SEC chairman on the first day of his presidency. Trump has also issued a number of NFTs and recently promoted a DeFi project called World Financial Liberty, which is run by his sons. He even became the first former U.S. president to publicly make a Bitcoin transaction when he bought almost $1,000 worth of hamburgers with the leading cryptocurrency at a Bitcoin-friendly bar in New York last week. Therefore, despite all the controversial views and outbursts of Donald Trump, to put it mildly, a large part of the crypto community and industry leaders are strongly rooting for the former president, who apparently smelled something in that crypto